Hi, welcome to PH Insights presented by the Pulmonary Hypertension Association. Join us as we delve into patient stories, healthcare updates, and the latest insights on pulmonary hypertension. Thank you to our platform sponsor, J&J, for their unrestricted support of PH Insights. Sponsors do not endorse or participate in the development of program content. Hi, everyone, and welcome to this episode of PH Insights. I am Angela, and today is very exciting. This episode is very special because we're celebrating our 1-year anniversary of PH Insights. And I couldn't think of a better way to mark this milestone than by sharing an incredible story of resilience, hope, and advocacy. Because today joining me is Keisha Jackson, a strong voice in the pulmonary hypertension community, who is here to share her journey living with PH, lupus, and other associated conditions. I'd had the pleasure of meeting Keisha at a local support group meeting, so I'm very, very excited for her to share her journey. Keisha, welcome to the show. I'm excited to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me, Angela. I'm so glad to be here. And I'm glad to be a part of PH Insights because I enjoy listening to all of the episodes that you have put on. It's very enlightening for all of us who are dealing with a pulmonary hypertension diagnosis.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Well, it feels very fitting to have you here 1 year after PH Insights has launched. That was my hope with the podcast, was that people will really learn something different. You know, we do have educational resources, but the podcast allows you to listen at home, on your way to appointments, on your way to work. So I do appreciate you tuning in. So I'd like to just get right to it. I know you have a very impactful story to share. Can you start by introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about your diagnosis story?
Surely. My name is Keisha again. I'm from the New Orleans area, New Orleans, Louisiana, and I live with my husband and two children, a son and a high schooler, teenage daughter. So we stay busy here. I'm going to backtrack a bit because first I was diagnosed with lupus, which is an autoimmune disease, in about 2005. And along with lupus, I have other autoimmune issues that I've also been diagnosed with. So when they diagnosed me with pulmonary hypertension, I'll be honest with you, I just took it and put it in my bag of all my autoimmune diseases because I was constantly told with lupus that if you have a neuropathy issue, I would see a neurologist and they would say, oh, well, if you treat the lupus, you'll treat that issue. If you have a blood issue, okay, if you treat the lupus, they'll treat that issue. So when I was told pH, I was tired. My pH was pretty severe and I wasn't very knowledgeable of the condition. So I thought, well, it's just like everything else,
Mhm.
and I neglected to go to a cardiologist when I was diagnosed for about probably almost a year.
Wow.
And fortunately, when I did go and get an official PH diagnosis, we were able to get me on a treatment plan that helped me to get to a pretty stable condition that I'm in right now.
Yeah, I mean, you said so much there. First, starting
Yes.
with having your lupus diagnosis and then having all of these other issues still come up, still present themselves. I think it's very important here to recognize that there is such a need for PH education, only among those who may be diagnosed, but those experts out there who specialize in chronic illnesses and they may not know about PH. They may not treat patients with PH. It's very important to know that it can have these associated conditions that may contribute to deterioration of quality of life.
My life is consumed honestly with stay at home mom. So
Okay.
it was lupus comes with a big bag of chronic fatigue, brain fog. It also contributes to a neuropathy that I have and walking mobility issues. So I've been dealing with a lot of those issues for a while. And I didn't say previously, but along with lupus and the pulmonary hypertension, I also suffer with scleroderma and
Mm.
interstitial lung disease, which will impact my breathing as well as the pulmonary hypertension. So I call it my little gumbo here in New Orleans of illnesses that I deal with. Um, but on a daily basis, it was a lot of fatigue. And when
Mhm.
I look back on it, I'll be honest, I don't know how I did some of it, especially without treatment. And then when I was able to get the treatment, thankfully, there is a pulmonary hypertension clinic in New Orleans. And so I was able to get on triple therapy for my pH, which was a breathing treatment that was 4 times a day. Then there
Mhm.
was a pill 3 times a day and once a day. So my day was consumed with medicine and remembering to take these medicines at different times, these medications. I was also on the oxygen. And if I leave the house, I have to take it with me. And so it's like, who has the baby? And who will buckle the baby in? Did you buckle the baby in? And who has the oxygen? And in the middle of all this, I'm having to just be. And
Yeah.
sometimes that was the hardest part to just uh, get things done in the moment. I'm so blessed that my children and husband are very supportive of me physically, mentally, emotionally, and I mean, in every way. So it
Mhm.
was definitely teamwork to make things happen. So I don't know if that fully answered the question.
Yeah, that was great. There, I feel like I have a couple of more questions from that one. And so I
Hmm.
just want to, I recognize it sounds exhausting to live with multiple conditions, multiple medications that you have to organize and take at the right time. You can't skip, you can't take it double for the next dose.
No.
And a lot of times, illnesses like this one, all of the conditions that you're living with are often not seen, and that can be very, very difficult to live with this invisible illness. Have you?
Yes, yes. It's lupus itself is called the mystery invisible illness.
Mhm.
So you throw in pulmonary hypertension and on the outside almost look physically fit. So and so let alone healthy. And it comes with a somewhat of a it's good and bad, I'll say. So the good part is that when I look in the mirror, it's motivating to me that I don't look how I feel. On the other hand, dealing with others, family members, strangers, teachers, friends, they don't understand how hard it is and how much, speaking personally, but how much I was
Yeah.
dealing with at that time. So just going out sometimes was difficult. Just to attend
Mhm.
social gatherings, getting ready would exhaust me to the point that by the time I'm ready to walk out the door, I'm too exhausted to go. As a parent, I miss my son's basketball games and my daughter's events at times. I would drag myself there at first to be present, but I would look sick and
Mhm.
I would look like I didn't feel well, and so it's good and bad, because it is an invisible illness, but it is an invisible illness that is hard, and wearing oxygen too can be mentally difficult for all of us, if you have to wear it. And it was a nurse that said to me that wearing oxygen, it's life support. I told her I viewed it as someone who's really sick when you see someone wearing oxygen. She said, well, it's not death support, it's life support.
Mm.
And that resonated with me. So,
Yeah.
and because I
Yeah.
was fighting wearing oxygen, but at that point I said, you know what? You're right. And I have to admit, it was so helpful. And it still is.
Yeah.
Because I did have to wear it 24/7 at one point. So now I wear it when I'm exerting a lot of energy doing physical activity.
That I think that's a really powerful point. It is life support. I think reframing in your mind, maybe you get a look here or there, maybe people have certain questions, but at the end of the
Hmm.
day, that is you living. You're still out,
Yes.
you're still about. That's life support, and it's looking forward to the future.
Yes.
You did touch a little bit about your kids, your son and
Hmm.
your daughter, who I know you're
Hmm.
very proud of, and you
I
light up when
am.
you talk about them. Were there any other challenges that you had to navigate while parenting with multiple chronic illnesses.
Absolutely. Even with the oxygen, wearing it itself,
Mhm.
before I received it, I tried to prepare my children to see me with it because I
Mhm.
alone had trouble envisioning myself wearing it. So I had individual talks with them. My son said that it made him feel as if I wouldn't be here much longer if I were to wear
Mhm.
oxygen. And my daughter said that, it would make her sad. She was about 11 or 12 when I first started wearing oxygen. And she said it would make her feel sad to see me wear it. So my point with them, the words I used with them was that wearing the oxygen would make me be able to be more present for them, that I would be able to attend more of their events, that it would help me to be stronger, that I made clear that I would still be ill, but,
Mhm.
and I may not be able to attend everything. However, I would be able to be more present for them. So, and they both received it so well, to the point that I remember when I received the oxygen, I picked my daughter up from carpool and she got in the car and I said, guess what I have? And she said, what? I said, I have my oxygen. And she said, yay, now you'll be able to come to more things. So she was so excited that I would be able to attend more things with the oxygen, more events with, since I would have the oxygen.
And that's part of it with anything with parenting. Your kids want you to be present when you are better. So the things that we often take in or are self-conscious about with kids, they just want you there and showing up and being present. I'm sure that that's helpful. So I
Hmm.
know I know we talked about some of these challenges, and I would like to go back when we get towards the end here to talk a little bit about your diagnosis. But it's very interesting that while living with lupus, scleroderma, PH, you also survived a brain bleed, which I was just blown away when we talked before. And I'm like, how do you find the strength? How do you get here to this point who you appear vibrant, you are always responsive when I'm reaching out to you. How did you deal with that? How did you navigate the experience of having a brain bleed?
The brain bleed was quite the experience, I'll say. I had a headache that I messaged my doctor and said I just can't take it anymore. And he said, well, let's send you to go get a CT scan and then you'll go to the ER. And at that point in my life, which was about August 2021, um,
Mhm.
at that point in my life, my pH was pretty severe and the lupus is flaring. So I was going to the ER about every two
Mm.
to 3 months, unfortunately. So it was part of the usual thing for me to do. I wasn't alarmed by having to go to the ER. But he said, he said, go get a CT scan, then we'll see, and you'll go to the ER. And I had the head scan done, and they called me and asked if I was still there. I said, yes, I'm in the parking lot. Well, don't leave. We're coming with a wheelchair and we're going to wheel you to the ER. Uh, so they wheeled me to the ER from my car and they said that I had so much blood on my brain that they were surprised I had driven there. They were surprised I was still conscious. Most people at that point would be intubated and unconscious. So an emergency craniotomy was done the next day. And as a result, I was in the hospital for about 3 weeks. Believe it or not, I was primarily in there 3 weeks due to the pH and recovering from the craniotomy because with the craniotomy, they release you within 5 to 7 days. I had, I did have 72 staples, as a result of the brain bleed and them, taking care of everything with that. And, getting through it all. And uh, Hurricane Ida hit while I was in the hospital recovering. So I was in the hospital while Hurricane Ida is, coming through the city. My family did not evacuate because they did not want to leave since I was here.
Mhm.
And thankfully, we all came through it. It was not easy. The hospital took good care of all of the patients in the hospital during the hurricane. Um, and I was released once my home had electricity again.
Right. As a Louisiana native, I am also in the snow. I remember that time.
Yeah,
It's wild, but I just remember there was no electricity in New Orleans. I live outside of the city area, so I even though we lost power here, it came on way sooner than it did in New Orleans in the immediate area. So that is wild. Is I can't even begin to imagine.
yeah. So it was also, talking to my family. They couldn't come to see me. That had
Right.
the hospital on lockdown. You could not get, and I could, no one could come in or out. Not even
Mhm.
doctors. The doctors were locked in the hospital. So one of the nurses was pretty kind though, and she would allow my husband to sneak snacks in. He couldn't come in, but she would meet him at the door downstairs and let him sneak snacks in, and they would be downstairs with posters saying "I love you, Mom," and I would put little papers in the window so they would know which one I
Oh,
was in. Yeah, it was quite the event, and I honestly leaned on my faith to get me through
mhm,
it.
mhm.
Um, and that's what really, truly got me through it all, because it was quite a time. It was quite a time.
It definitely was. Just a little bit more context for people who do not have to deal with hurricanes. Most of the times, if the power is out across the city, there are curfews. You can't be on the street at certain times. We also are in Louisiana, so it's humid, it's hot. There are many factors happening outside of the hospital.
You can't wash your clothes. There's no gas because the pumps are
Yes,
electric, or it's limited. The generators need gas. It's
yes.
not pleasant at all. My family had to go to Mississippi to get gas and to do laundry.
Wow. All while navigating this space of, is my mom okay? Is my wife
Right.
okay? How is she feeling? What are the after impacts, after surgeries? You have to watch people. And you said that you stayed longer because of the pH. Could you elaborate a little bit?
Absolutely. One thing with the brain bleed is that they still don't know what caused it. I was on a blood thinner at the time. However, they just say it was a spontaneous brain bleed. So they treated the brain bleed, however, with my pH medication. As I said, it was so much at that time that we had to get me titrated onto the medication again, which means
Gotcha.
that you take a little bit at a time and then a little bit more. They wanted to make sure that my pH was stable enough for me to go home. With the impact of a surgery of that magnitude,
Hmm.
the lupus can flare. With the lupus being an autoimmune disease, my immune system is suppressed, weakened, slowed down so that the lupus doesn't flare. So they were concerned with me getting an infection and be susceptible to um, more symptoms. The pH can worsen,
Hmm.
and any other issues that the lupus causes will get more severe. Um,
But what about the medical care? Do you work with a core group of experts or professionals or specialists? Do they know and understand each condition? Because I think that would be really interesting for listeners. How do you navigate
mhm.
the various doctor's appointments if there are multiple and the various specialists you have to see?
Well, I'll say that managing doctor's appointment, opinions, and treatments of it all can be very difficult.
Hmm.
I have been fortunate that the rheumatologist I see, he's been around for a while. I've seen him for 20 years, and I think he may have been a rheumatologist for 20 years before that. He's very knowledgeable, but I'll say sometimes it's still difficult relaying my symptoms to him and feeling understood and heard. What I say to everyone that I encounter with a chronic illness or any illness, to be honest, you must advocate and speak up for yourself. When I was
Hmm.
diagnosed with lupus, I was constantly told that it was postpartum. I noticed my symptoms after my son was born. So When he was about 6 months, I'm realizing, man, I couldn't even go to the grocery store. It would be hard for me to bring the groceries in, even. I was so
Mhm.
exhausted. And here it was before I had LJ, I was going to working full time, going to school at night, and I'm physically active all the time. And now I can't even bring groceries in. What's going on?
Mm. Mhm.
So after a year, he still said it was postpartum. And no, this is not postpartum. Yeah, I say to everyone that you have to advocate for yourself. And if you feel like your symptom isn't being addressed, don't be afraid to go to another doctor. Don't be afraid to get a second opinion. You have to, because
Yeah.
you depend on it. Your life depends on it. It might be minor. It doesn't matter. You have to speak up for yourself. I think that people with chronic illnesses need a point person that
Mm.
will help you get to the right specialist, that will look at all of your tests going on and bring it all together for you.
Mhm.
So I'm fortunate that I somewhat have a doctor who does that, but that's not the case for everyone.
Right.
So as a result, I see, just for PH, I see pulmonary, I see cardiology, which is where the PH clinic is, and I also see rheumatology. So those are three specialists, and they work very closely together. They communicate with each other well to help me to get the right treatment available.
Do they also work with your other specialists that you have to handle your other conditions? Do they communicate within that group with each other?
Yes, I'm fortunate that all of my specialists are within one system. So Um, I have to say, my rheumatologist does work as a point person. When I say a symptom, he will send me to the neurologist. He will send me to a hematologist for my blood work. Sometimes the hematologist or the neurologist may think that a particular test is explained by someone else. And the
Mhm.
rheumatologist thinks that the neurologist explained the neurology test. So I've become quite vocal with having my questions put out there. I've asked sometimes for the nurse to ask the doctor to come back in because I wasn't finished asking my question. I keep it, of course, polite and
Mm.
respectful because I do have to work with them. Um, but it can be emotional at times and it's difficult and frustrating. I'll admit that. However, I am fortunate. It doesn't mean that I don't feel not heard at times, that I don't feel as if some symptoms are not being addressed properly. So, and I
Which is
also see an eye doctor because the lupus medication can affect my eyes. So I have to have eye tests done annually, and the scleroderma causes severe dry mouth. So
mhm.
it's a lot. It is. What I'm trying to do, honestly, is to compose an organizer for people with chronic illnesses that they can organize everything.
I feel like I've said a couple of times this episode, and I'll reinforce when I originally heard your story, I was just like, there's so many things we can talk about, and so much that people can learn from you from navigating this journey and sharing your experience. And I think part of that is that advocacy point, which you already spoken of. You know, you're moving forward, you're learning how to establish some normalcy for yourself, to get back to yourself as your kids are and graduating college and in high school. I think that's an important part for our listeners to hear who put their life on hold to manage their diagnosis, manage their treatment, balance themselves out. But now you're in a point where you feel comfortable to advocate for yourself.
Yes. In September of 23, I was able to go advocate on Capitol Hill with a foundation that helps to pay for my pH medication. Because as we know, the pH medications can be quite expensive. And
Yeah.
I was on triple therapy and they were all very expensive each. So the PAN Foundation helps um, PH patients and a lot of other patients with chronic illnesses to pay for those expensive medications.
And actually, I would just like to say The PAN Foundation has immediate financial assistance available for patients with pulmonary hypertension and with any type of health insurance. Patients may qualify for up to $8,000 a year in financial assistance for medication costs. Patients, caregivers, or healthcare providers can apply today at panfoundation.org. And if you are a provider in the PH community, visit panfoundation.org to request custom training on enrolling patients. PAN is here to help.
The experience was so empowering and enlightening to me, how my story could be impactful, that I decided that I wanted to be more of an advocate in the community for PH and for all chronic illnesses, especially the ones that I don't even know how to say
Yeah.
that.
For the chronic illnesses you're
It's-
dealing with.
yeah, I joke around so much. I didn't want to say that I'm fortunate to deal with. Um, but advocating in DC was so empowering to me that it motivated me to become more active in advocating for people with chronic illness. So I have decided to return to school and get a degree that will help with learning to advocate for patients and healthcare advocacy. I'm so excited to return to school and do that. It's a personal goal of mine.
Yeah.
Um, I know it's not necessary for patient advocacy. Really, the only experience you need is your experiences as a patient. However, it's just a personal goal of mine at this stage of my life that I'm able to do that. And I'm hoping that I can help just one person, honestly, to increase their quality of life because that's what it's about. It's just finding our happy and improving our quality of life.
I mean, I understand you absolutely do not have to go back to school to advocate for others. However, when there is something that you become passionate about, you want to be your best at it and you want to do things that make you feel comfortable to advocate for others. So I understand that. And as we mentioned earlier, you navigated your illness, had to parent your children, so now it's time to have that moment for yourself. What brings you joy and what gives you fulfillment? So thank you for sharing that with us. And I know we're getting close to the end of this episode.
hmm
So before we wrap up, is there
hmm
anything else you would like our listeners to know?
yes. Uh, One thing I would love to say to everyone is I tell myself when it's hard, for me, what helps me is to just keep going. It's my personal mantra. Just keep going. I try to walk every day. I've gotten up to 2 miles. And when I get to about a mile and it's so hard and I want to stop, I say it out loud to myself. Just keep going. You got this. Just keep going. And you got this. And with the support of PHA, listening to the PH Insights podcast, reading the magazine, all of that helps us just keep going,
Mhm.
and find what makes you happy. I'm fortunate that I have my wonderfully supportive husband. He makes it very possible that I'm able to focus on my health and my kids. And our roles have evolved so much in our marriage as my illnesses have changed and worsened, they get better. I mean, well, we've been married 20 years now. Almost 20 years.
Okay.
Almost
Yeah.
20 years now. So, he never used to cook, for instance. And now he probably cooks about 70% of our meals. And it's not because I
Wow.
don't enjoy doing that. It's just that it was hard for me to do. So, um, and he understands that.
Yeah.
And that's good. And in my family, we try to laugh as much as possible, even at the hard times and the painful things. So,
Mhm.
if sometimes I can't get out the car because I'm too tired and I'm exhausted and I have to take a break just to get out the car to the front door. My son, he's over 6 feet tall. He'll come in, be like, Mom, come on, get on my back. And he'll
Oh,
carry me. Yeah, he'll carry me on his back into the house. He's 6'4". Thankfully,
yeah.
he can do it. I take advantage of it too. Yeah, right, right. So, and I remember when I had my brain surgery, my daughter, um, when she saw me for the first time after the brain surgery, it's quite a sight to see. I'll be honest.
Mm,
Your mother with 72 staples and her head partially shaved. Um, I take my time with my kids and I reveal things to them um, in the best way that I can, if possible. And I said, "Are you ready to see me with my scarf off?" Because I was wearing a scarf on my head in the hospital. And she said, "Yes." And I said, "Well, mommy kind of looks like Frankenstein a bit."
mm.
I said, remember your brother had one staple? Mommy has a few more, 72, and and she said, "Yeah, I'm ready." And so when I took the scarf off, she said, "You know what? You do kind of look like Frankenstein." And here's what she
No.
did say after
Oh,
that.
okay.
So, so when I took the scarf off and she saw the scar, she said, "You know what, mommy? I'm just glad you're here."
Yeah.
And that was so relieving for me to hear and for her to receive it so well. And she smiled this big old smile. And those are the things that keep me going. Those are the things. So, but I want to say to everyone, just keep going. Find your happy, find your mantra. And when it's hard, say it to yourself. Just keep
Mhm.
going or whatever that is for you because it is going to be okay.
Thank you. Thank you for trusting us to share your story. And to the Jackson family, we are also glad she is here because Keisha has shared such an impactful and powerful part of what she's lived through and experienced with our listeners here. I will also say, besides the podcast, we will have more of Keisha's story in that latest issue of Pathlight, so you can read more about Keisha. Stay tuned for that. And then also to our listeners, thank you for supporting this podcast for the past year. We wouldn't continue without you listening. So I appreciate the feedback and hope that you are getting information out of these episodes, whether it is about pH or it's heartwarming stories similar to Keisha's sharing her journey. Hopefully, we will continue into the second season of pH Insights to raise awareness and to build a stronger PH community together. Thank you again, Keisha. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so excited to be a part of it. And I just hope that my story can help someone.
And thank you for listening to pH Insights presented by the Pulmonary Hypertension Association. Remember to subscribe and to join us every second and fourth Wednesday of the month for more valuable insights. And thank you to J&J for their unrestricted support of pH Insights.